today, Ralph Records recording artist, The Residents from San Francisco, California. And would you also please welcome Homer Flynn, who is the spokesman for the band and also for the Cryptic Corporation. Welcome, Homer.
Hi. Hi, Chris.
Nice to have you here today.
Well, it's nice to be here. We've enjoyed our stay in Canada so far and hope we continue to.
Yeah, this is the first visit for the band to this country, we believe?
Definitely. It is definitely the first visit. And if the reception in Toronto is anything like the one in Montreal, the band will be back just as quickly as possible. It was a great reception in Montreal.
Oh, terrific. We're glad to hear that, because I know that performing is not something that the Residents usually do. They're more recording act, we understand, and video makers.
Historically, they are definitely a recording act, as well as video makers, but their interest in performing live has really increased a lot over the last few years, and so I think there are probably going to be more performances and more concerts, but it's a pretty unpredictable situation, so we just have to see.
Now, Ralph Records is based in San Francisco, we understand, and there are also other artists signed to the label like Tuxedo Moon and Snake Finger, and you also distribute records through Ralph. How does the Cryptic Corporation and Ralph Records, how does that all work?
Well, the Cryptic Corporation did own Ralph Records up until about 6 months ago, and we recently sold it to the man who was the sales manager, and really he's running Ralph Records now. The Cryptic Corporation actually are the managers for the Residents. We really handle all their business affairs. When they have projects, like there's a big video project that we've been trying to get financing on for some time now, and we've been handling all the details on that. We set up the tours for them, produced the videos for them. So we generally handle all their business aspects, as well as doing some projects on our own, but the Residents are mainly what we're concentrating on right now.
Now, the Residents have been recording for over 10 years now. The first album was called Meet the Residents, is that right?
Right, that's true.
And you've ranged musically through an incredible variety of styles. Are they just relentlessly curious to explore different areas, or what's made them keep changing like that?
Well, the Residents started out with the idea of trying to make each album as different from the previous one as possible. And it has a lot to do with just, as you say, a relentless drive towards experimentation. I mean, they really like to try different things. They don't really, whereas it seems that most artists are not really content until they can make things sound, you know, almost like one thing comes directly after another with very little change in between, a sort of a seamless sound from album to album. The Residents really like for that to change and continue to surprise their fans because they don't really know what they're going to do next.
We have the video for Hello Skinny now. Maybe you could tell us a little bit of what went into that particular video, and especially for our fans at home who are used to much more mainstream music, maybe you could tell them, offer a warning, if you will, for what to expect here.
Well, let's see, that's a good challenge. Hello Skinny was actually made by a very talented filmmaker, Graham Whipper, who was the staff video artist or filmmaker for Ralph Records for about 2 or 3 years in the late 70s. He made that as well as Tuxedo Moon's video, as well as MX-80, Snake Fingers, and he did 2 of the Residents' 1-minute movies. The video itself is a collage of still photos that then has a lot of movement put into it by moving cameras. And from my standpoint, I consider it, if not the best, definitely one of the strongest of the Residents' videos.
But skin has soul something every single night.
There you have Hello Skinny from The Residents, and we are here, as you can probably see, with the members of The Residents and also with Homer Flynn, spokesman for the band, and from the Cryptic Corporation. Now, we understand that you had an unfortunate security problem recently.
Yes, unfortunately, The Residents were playing a show at the Palace Theater in Los Angeles, and there was a definite lapse in security after the show, and one of the eyeballs was stolen. And one of the residents here has definitely suffered a loss of identity.
Yeah.
And at first it was really terrible, and everybody was very upset over it. But the residents are almost fatalistic in a lot of ways. They believe that life presents you with certain opportunities, and fate comes in certain ways, and you should follow these things. You should not turn your back on them. So this resident now has a new identity. He's Mr. Deadeye, as we call him among the troupe.
Right.
And things are, life goes on. We have to do the best we can from it. There's definitely talk at one point of trying to find someone to put a curse on the missing eyeball.
Right.
But we've decided it's no reason to go that heavy with it now. So the threat of the curse has now been eliminated.
Oh, good. Now, is this a character in transition? In other words, might this particular character evolve or devolve in a new direction?
Oh, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, at this point, it is in transition. Whether the transition winds up with this as the reality or it continues to move, it's really hard to tell.
Now, you have done a cover version. Well, first of all, you did a whole album with The Residents of, 60-second versions of old rock classics.
Well, not exactly. Not exactly. I mean, that's sort of two different albums that you're talking about.
Okay.
The first album was The Third Reich and Roll.
Right.
Okay, and that was just sort of a conglomeration or a mixture of all 1960s, sort of 1960s bubblegum hits or trashy hits. Like
the
my
Yummy
baby,
Yummy and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yummy
Okay.
Yummy, My Baby Does the Hanky Panky, Ballad of the Green Berets, et cetera, et cetera. The other record is one called The Residents Commercial Album,
Ah, I see. Okay.
in which they're actually attempting to do, for them, relatively commercial music. See, I'm not getting any agreement over here, but...
No, well, you can only do the best you can.
Yeah, that's right. But the hook in the thing, or the lack of commerciality, comes in the fact that all of the songs are exactly 1 minute long. And so it winds up getting no airplay, or there was one writer that referred to it as musical coitus interruptus. It's like just about the time that you're sort of getting your foot tapping along with it, it stops.
It's over, yeah.
And the next one starts and you start getting your foot tapping along with it, and then it stops.
Someone saw a strange amount of moisture on her lips, and it was also seen upon her arms and on her hips. chair. She was wrapping something up and wrapping it with care. I did not mean to hurt her when I fell asleep last night. I was just exhausted from the act of being polite. Yes, I was just exhausted from the act of being polite. There's something I must say. The only really perfect love is one that gets away.
Now, you've done a cover version also of the James Brown classic, It's a Man's World. What led to that reinterpretation?
Well, the Residents have been long-standing James Brown fans. I mean, they have some wonderful stories about seeing James Brown in concert back in the mid-'60s. Wonderful concerts back in the South. And like I say, I have long been fans. They are in the midst of a proposed series of records called the American Composer Series, in which they take famous American composers and redo their music. And so one entire side of the first release is by James Brown. The album is called George and James. It's George Gershwin on one side and James Brown on the other.
Right.
They're also in the midst of their second album of this series, which will be released next fall, and it's John Philip Sousa and Hank Williams.
Oh, excellent choices.
So they have a lot of interest in doing other people's music as well as their own.
Now, has James Brown heard this version? Do we know?
Not that I know of.
Oh.
Not that I know of.
Well, hopefully you'll hear it in the future. We're going to play it for our viewers right now. This is The Residents on Much Music, and it's a man's world.
And they do this live on the show.
Take us over the road, and man made the train to carry the heavy load. And man made the electric light to take us out of the dark. And man made the boat for the water, like Noah made the ark. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl. Man thinks about a little bitty baby girl and a baby boy. Man makes them happy. 'Cause a man makes them toys. And after man makes everything he can. You know that man makes money to buy another man. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing. No, it wouldn't be nothing. No, it wouldn't be nothing without a woman. Without a woman or a girl. He's lost in the wilderness. He's lost. He's lost in bitterness. He's lost. He's lost.
Sometimes she was happy,